You're listening to the podcast called What No One Knows. I'm your host, Lisa Marie Garcia. Please join us as I talk with some of the most important influencers, from entrepreneurs to C-suites to founders to venture capitalists. You will want to know their answer to the question, what no one knows. Thank you for joining. Hello, thank you for joining the podcast, What No One Knows. I'm Lisa Marie Garcia, and I'm here in hot and sunny Tampa Bay City at the Tampa Bay Wave offices downtown, and we're in Wave Studio 1. And I'd like to say thank you to our guest, Penny Parks, for joining us in her busy schedule, coming to join me. So thank you, Penny, for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I'm very excited that I had the pleasure of meeting you at our Pitch Fest for the Cybertech pitch last week. And you also, Mayor Castor was there. You were in great company, esteemed company, because then she spoke, and you also spoke, talking about this new endeavor with the Wave, as you are the chairman of the board. So congratulations, and I'm so happy for the Wave that we have you.
Thank you. So I became the chair January 1st.
Yes.
So
it's a great new beginning to 2026. So
exactly.
Fabulous. Well, let's go ahead and just start digging in. I always, part of this show is we talk about the wonderful things that Wave is doing, which is a nonstop conversation, because it seems like, event after event and partnership and all the dang money that they keep on bringing to the community. It's so fabulous. But you had been a part of the board for how many years, and how did that happen to be?
So I've been on the board for about 6 years. And I was originally introduced to the Tampa Bay Wave by Alex Sink, who was a mentor to me. I used to work for her many years ago, and she thought that this would be a good organization for me to get involved. She thought that I'd be able to help the organization, and that it would be something worthwhile for me to do as well. So that's how I was originally introduced to the Wave 6 years ago.
Well, and with your company, so talk a little bit about what you do with your company, Links, because it's very key what you can, bring and what you have brought with the Wave.
So I own a company. I'm in my 20th year. It's called Links Financial. So it's a little boutique investment bank. So we raise capital for companies. We help people buy and sell businesses. We help people restructure their businesses and restructure their debt. And so it's a regionally based firm based here in Tampa, and most of the companies that I've worked with in the past have been in this area.
So with the, most of the asks, as we saw in the Pitch Fest from the cohorts, are, I need X amount of millions of dollars, and we need, this type of investment, or we need this investment for. So in your experience, do you find that giving that clarity to the owners, to the startups, to those entrepreneurs is, key from the beginning, or from what stage? What could you say to people saying, yes, I have this fantastic idea. I know it's going to make me gazillion dollars, but they need investment.
So whenever I do meet with any of the companies that go through one of our cohort programs, it would strictly be on a volunteer basis. Links Financial works with later stage companies, and so the businesses that we work with are a little bit further in their life cycle than the companies that are typically coming through the Tampa Bay Wave. Now, I've advised a number of companies that have gone through our WAVE program. But again, that's just been on a volunteer basis. And I am passionate about helping people, and I'm passionate about helping the companies that come through our program, because I just think that the program is so worthwhile. And I feel that the caliber of the companies that we've been able to attract here to Tampa and to come through the program is just incredible.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, I've been with them as a mentor advisor, I think about 3 years now, and it still wows me, right? It still amazes me. But as so in your field, what would you say is something that the startups, are missing, or what do you see that's most common about where maybe they're not prepared yet for the VC ask, since that's your lane of expertise?
So I think two things come to mind. Number one, I think that any business, whether it's one of the companies that's coming through the wave, whether it's a startup, which is sort of an earlier phase company, or even a later stage company, I think that for the most part, people don't raise enough money. They think they're going to need X, but they really are going to need X plus Y, whatever that amount is. But so my advice usually is if you think you're going to need, I'm just making up a number, if you think you're going to need $2 million, you probably really need $3 million when all is said and done. Because I think that a lot of times businesses underestimate how long it's going to take for revenues to come through, or even if it is a company that already does have revenues, just to ramp the way they think they're going to ramp. I wish I had $1 for every time I saw a hockey stick projection of what the financials or what the revenues were going to look like, because we would all be like billionaires. Because most people think, I'm going to get it going, I have a great idea, and it's just going to take off. And I think a lot of business owners don't realize how difficult it is really to get revenue and to sustain it. So I think that's the first thing that I would suggest. I think the other thing is earlier on, I remember working with some companies that were looking to raise money to fund a salary for themselves, in a pretty hefty salary, and that's not really nobody really wants to invest money in a business to simply allow a founder to make a sizable salary. I think that people are more interested in seeing that that the founder truly has skin in the game, whether that's sweat equity or all of their life savings into the business before you're going to write, an outsider is going to write a check.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Well, I know on Shark Tank, right? I mean, they definitely all get a frown on their face when they hear that, well, I've spent the money on my own salary. I mean, it's just a given. And no, I like that. I was going to ask you when you were talking about that hockey puck idea. I love that visual. So what should it really look like? I was trying to find out in my head, should it be like a boomerang, or should it be, because, it's more so like this and then this and this. I mean, up and down and up and down. What can it look like? But,
I think it depends on, it depends on the situation, but rarely is it, the hockey stick where all of a sudden it's going like this and then it's just going to ramp up drastically. I don't think that that's realistic for most businesses. And what I would suggest for people is when you're starting to think about your projections, whatever you think it's going to be, almost like dial it down 50%. Yeah. And then, it would be great if you could exceed expectations as opposed to never being able to make your numbers. And again, you're in good company because, the S&P 500, do you know what percentage of the S&P 500 has made their numbers 5 years in a row? Like 5%. So again, it's and if you're going to be in business for yourself, if you're going to start a business, you have to be an optimist or you wouldn't do it.
Right.
And so there's a natural tendency to think that things are going to be better. You almost have to be that way or you wouldn't do this. You wouldn't 100%. Go into business, whatever your business is. Right. So, I think that's sort of a, natural thing to do. But if you could temper what your expectations are and build your financial model based on that.
No, that's excellent advice. And then there's that other element I was thinking as you were talking of what's the plan B, because as you have experience as a business owner, you learn you've got to have, like for me, I always have to have a plan B, and I always have to have a B person, right? I always have to be at least one, deep, right? Because that key person, you can never have only one person that knows how to do that one thing. Learn those lessons. So that's great stuff. Let's talk more about the wave. And so what I love as we talk through the show with the different people that are part of the wave is all the different elements and what they do in the community. And also, from my perspective, I've been here from Seattle 11 years now, the immense, tech ecosystem that is, what it is. And it seems like it's growing every day. I love it, right? So many more tech organizations, so many more, tech companies and such. A lot of times people will express what's so unique about the Tampa Bay Wave in this now tech-centric area. What would you share about that from your experience with the Tampa Bay Wave?
So a couple things come to mind. And I'm thrilled that you feel the same way, that the area is on fire.
Yes.
This is, everyone wants to move here. This is the place to be. And I think that a lot of these companies that the Wave has been able to attract to come to go through one of our programs, also see how incredible this community is, how welcoming. I think that's one of the key things. It's a very welcoming city. All of the people here, everyone, most people are not from here, and so maybe that's what makes us all so welcoming, because we're just thrilled that someone new is going to come and experience and see how amazing the community is, both just from a lifestyle perspective, but also really from a business perspective. It's a great place to have a business. So I think that that's part of it. The other thing I would mention about the Wave and what makes the Waves so special is a lot of our, we're the number one accelerator in the Southeast United States.
Right.
And when you look at the other accelerators, not an incubator, but you look at the other accelerators around the United States, most of them take, to go through one of their programs, to go through their cohort program, the company has to provide a percentage of the ownership of the company. You're shaking your head. You know what I'm about to say. Has to provide a percentage of ownership to be to go through the program. We don't do that here at the Wave. So we'd like to say that we attract smart founders, because folks that understand that you don't really want to. You don't really want to have to give up ownership to go through that, because ownership is really precious, and holding on to your ownership as long as you can is always the best way to go. I'm always a fan of saying, if you don't have to have a stinking partner, it's best to not have one.
That's right.
So
That's
so as
right.
long as you can go without having to do that, when you have to do your later stage raises and that sort of thing, we all understand that. But so the good news, bad news. So good news is we don't take so if you're, one of the companies, that's great news for you. Okay. But if you're the Tampa Bay Wave, what that means is, because again, we're a 501c3, we're a not-for-profit organization. Yeah. So come January 1st every year, we're starting back at zero. So when it comes time for us, to raise money so that we're able to provide these first-class programs, we start back at zero. And so we're always, having to raise money, with grants or with sponsorships. All of our board members, are sponsors of the organization as well. Everyone is what's called a friend of the Wave.
Yep.
At a minimum. Yep. And so, so that is great, but it's also a challenge, because again, in different types of economic climates, sometimes it's harder than other times to try to raise money.
Right.
And as opposed to being able
present time,
right,
not
exactly,
talked about.
As opposed to on the other side, whereas if we were to take a piece of ownership, again, a lot of the companies that go through other cohort programs, they aren't necessarily going to hit it big, but all you need is one or two unicorns, and then that would fund fund the organization. Right. We just don't do that. So that's one of our challenges, but it's also good because we attract, again, the smart founders and folks that really, understand the ecosystem and what the value that we provide is to them. So I think those are kind of critical points to this.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, definitely a unique part of the Tampa Bay Wave. So let's stay on the dollars part of it. Two things. One thing is, I think the raise is incredible,
I think we're up to $1.7 billion.
I love that.
Our companies have raised, and that's that's just tremendous, and it's it's accelerating a lot quicker. Yes. It took us a long time to get to the first 100 million. Then it took a long time to get to it wasn't that long ago, just a couple of years ago, where we were at $1 billion,
right? And
now we're already at $1.7 billion.
Yes, it's so fantastic. Like I said, I wouldn't even think it was less than 2 years that we hit $1 billion. That was so monumental. Now you're almost to $2 billion.
Right.
So crazy great.
Yeah.
Well, that part, so let's stay on the dollars for that. And then on the other side, I mean, let's dig in a little bit more to let people know on how they can bring dollars into the Wave. And like you talked about, for instance, to be a friend.
A friend of the Wave is a $1,500 commitment. So, if you think about that, a little over $100 a month type of a situation.
So reasonable.
And for that, you're helping the ecosystem. You're supporting this not-for-profit, so it's a tax-deductible donation, and you're also really helping feed the ability for this organization to attract these kind. There's to attract these kinds of businesses and to really make a difference in this community in such a meaningful way, but in not that expensive and everything. Everything's relative, but in a very meaningful way. And then, as you had mentioned, we have 6 cohorts a year. So we have different. We just had cyber tech, as you mentioned.
Got fintech coming up,
and
ed
health
tech,
and so on and so forth. So we've got quite a few of these, and then. So as a friend of the Wave, you're invited to to special events for friend of the Wave supporters, but also to attend our opening ceremonies and our closing ceremonies for each of these programs. And if you've ever sat through one of as you did the other night, if you've ever sat through and listened to these companies, one is more impressive than the next one. And when you hear what they've accomplished and what they're looking to accomplish, it's incredible.
It's crazy great. We were just talking because Pitch Fest was last week for cyber tech. You see these companies, first of all, from all across, not just the nation, but like the Latin tech, all over the world in that, right? So you see this just amazement of different types of services and inventions and some amazing ideas. But you also get to see the different stages that the companies are in and where they're at. And then when they come to their ask, Pitch Night is one of my favorite events, right? Because they're asking they have their specific ask. Is it a certain specific revenue amount? Is it, it could be many different things. Who are they asking it to and that? But it's just invigorating. It's like the only word I can think of right now, right?
It really is. And I think one of the other things that the Tampa Bay Wave has that others don't, we have an incredible mentor network. You had mentioned that you've been a mentor. And when you think about the caliber of mentors that we have and the number of mentors that we have. Remember the old joke about the 7 degrees of separation. It's one of those situations where when these companies that come through our programs, if they're specific enough, I need to get to to this kind of a person in this kind of an industry. Invariably, when we kind of search our database and when we kind of look through our mentor network, we are often able to help those folks get to that key person that they're trying to connect with for their business.
I hear that all the time, to be honest, with the cohorts that we bring on the show. When we talk about some of the values, multiple values from being part of the WAVE program, they will say that specifically. They will say, we needed this X type of person. The WAVE made that connection. We had been looking for this person. The WAVE made it happen. So 1,000%. And I think there's usually 2 or 3 experts in exactly what the cohort needs. There isn't a value in that. It's priceless.
Yeah. Oh, I know that I've been asked, because I'm part of the mentor, and I've been asked to make a couple of different introductions. And, in some cases, if you make some of these introductions, could in some ways almost be better than the money.
Right.
Although we have a very impressive investor network as well,
yes.
a rather extensive investor network as well that we, can help connect these companies, to as well. But again, I think a lot of times the mentor is just, that's just, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. Okay, well, we're getting close to time. I want to ask you just maybe 2 more questions. If I could ask you to share something, because I'm a big believer in this, that you think that only your professional experience taught you. Lots of people have many degrees and all that, background. But sometimes as a business owner or founder or entrepreneur, you have to have actually lived through it, and maybe a few times of the same lesson. Can you share one of those favorite times for you?
So I would say never give up. That would be my lesson. That would be my takeaway. And there have been so many times, if you're a business owner, you're in sales, okay? Mm-hmm. So I equate it back to being in sales. And, a salesperson will tell you, that no is almost the best answer to get. But if you just don't give up, because there's so many people that are going to tell you no. And when you speak with a lot of founders of companies, I know when I founded my company, people thought I was crazy. People said, oh, it'll never work. You'll never last. It won't happen, that sort of thing. And, if you listen to that head trash, it won't happen. Then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't think you can do it, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to do it. Right. But, I guess I just look at it as never give up. And I don't give up, and I've told some of my clients with at Links Financial, I'll be with you till the end until you're ready to call it. I'm right there with you, because I think that is just so important. You have to have that amount of tenacity to make things work. So that would be my big lesson learned.
I love that, and I agree. I'm a big believer in what the Bible says. It says just do it, and those are hard things to really live when it's a bad day, and when you're tired, and when you've done the same thing 7 times and it's not working, and when you have, like you said, the naysayers, and everything is telling you, that's it, call it, stay down. We've got a new client, he's a boxer. Stay down on the mat. Don't get up, right?
Exactly.
It's so easy to stay down on the mat. So easy. When that time comes, it's when you need to know what is going to be the hashtag for this show, Never Give Up. I agree 100%. Thank you for sharing that. And so we're here to our last question. Can you share something that no one knows? What does someone not know about Penny Parks, chairman of the board of the Wave? and actually, we didn't talk about golf course owner and all that is your background. We will publish your full bio and such in the notes.
Oh, that's
what
fine.
would you? I know.
That's fine.
I'm just telling. Well, people want to know about you, so I'm telling them.
So, I was born in Washington, D.C. There's very few people you'll meet in your lifetime who were actually born in Washington, D.C. I grew up in Maryland, in Silver Spring, Maryland, but I grew up in Washington, D.C. And it was a wonderful place to grow up because the local news was the national news. So I grew up with congressmen's kids, and anything that was happening was just incredible because we were right there experiencing it.
Right.
And so I actually got to meet the Queen of England.
Very cool.
So that's probably something that people don't know. She has beautiful skin, or she did. She's since passed away, obviously. But I got to meet the Queen of England. My mother was one of those people who felt that she used to kiddingly say she didn't want school to get in the way of our education. So she would take my sister.
Very wise.
She would take my sister and me out of school. So we went to the Watergate trials. If there was anything, any major art exhibition that was taking place, or if there was anything special that was happening in Washington, D.C., we were going to be right there. So it was an incredible way to grow up and to just be exposed to all of those types of experiences.
I love that. And wow, that's incredible. You hear about sometimes families taking their family or their kids out of school to go on a road trip in the RV. Thumbs up to that. how can you have a better upbringing than that? Wonderful.
It's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for taking time
me.
in your busy schedule and coming and joining us. And thank you for your future leadership and all that you're doing to benefit the Tampa Bay Wave, which I hope everyone becomes a part of in some ways and really dig into the Tampa Bay Wave and what they do. And you'll be as amazed and as happy as the both of us are to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to our show, What No One Knows. If you'd like more information regarding our guests, it's in the description below, as well as if you'd like to work with our publishing and promotion team, that you can also find in the links. Thank you.